Most people believe money solves everything. After all, what could a billionaire possibly struggle with? But behind the luxury and power, Marcel hid a painful secret, one that no amount of wealth could fix. You won't believe this, but despite his success, he lived in fear. Fear of being seen, fear of being judged. Against all odds, the person who changed his life wasn't a doctor or a high society elite. It was a struggling single mum with nothing but kindness to offer. Pia never set out to fix a millionaire. She was just trying to survive, working as an elevator operator and sewing to support her little sister. But one life-changing moment placed her in Marcel's world, and before she knew it, she wasn't just mending fabric. She was healing a man who had never known real acceptance, left everyone speechless. Her compassion unlocked a transformation no one saw coming. This isn't just a heartwarming story, it's a lesson in human connection. How did a relationship built on trust and vulnerability lead to an unbelievable outcome? And what happened when the world found out the truth? Marcel had spent years hiding, but could he finally step into the light? And when the woman who truly saw him was given a choice, to stay or to walk away, what happened next left everyone in shock. Marcel had built his empire on elegance, a billionaire whose presence commanded attention. His tailored suits, sharp jawline, and effortless charm made him seem untouchable. But beneath the polished exterior lay a truth he buried beneath layers of silk and deception. Against all odds, he wasn't just fighting for power, he was fighting his own body. His skin condition, relentless and cruel, was the one imperfection he couldn't erase. Every morning before stepping into the world, he endured a brutal ritual. Ointments, medicated wraps, pain masked beneath crisp white shirts no one could know. In the elite circles he moved through, flaws weren't just looked down upon, they were weapons used to destroy reputations. You won't believe this, but Marcel feared exposure more than financial ruin. His condition wasn't just a secret, it was his greatest shame. He had spent his life controlling every detail of his appearance. No handshake lasted too long, no hug lingered. He had mastered avoidance, yet despite his careful planning, the unthinkable happened one evening when his private tailor noticed a glimpse of irritated skin at his wrist. The man said nothing, but Marcel knew what he had seen, left everyone speechless. The tailor was dismissed the next day. Rumors swirled. Some whispered that Marcel was eccentric. Others assumed he was arrogant. He allowed these falsehoods to persist because the truth was far worse. In his world, perfection wasn't optional. It was currency. Cleaned wounds were not enough. He needed to erase them completely, but no treatment, no doctor, no amount of money could make his condition disappear. He was trapped. But fate had other plans. A single moment, an ordinary interaction, would unravel everything. Pia was just an elevator operator, a seamstress in her spare time, invisible to men like him, or so she thought. That night, their paths crossed in the most unremarkable way. An unexpected turn of fate had placed her at the center of his world. Though neither of them realized it yet, as the elevator doors slid shut, she bent down, needle and thread in hand, repairing a small tear in her uniform. Marcel, distracted and lost in thought, glanced at her absent-mindedly. Then he saw it. Her hands, steady, precise, working with an expertise that caught him off guard. The unthinkable happened. For the first time in years, he was intrigued by something outside himself. That moment, insignificant to Pia, planted a seed in Marcel's mind. A tailor who understood precision, a worker who didn't just mend fabric but restored dignity. An unbelievable outcome was about to unfold. One stitch at a time, Pia never expected to catch a billionaire's attention. She lived in a world that demanded more than it gave, scraping by on minimal wages, sewing late into the night just to keep food on the table. When Marcel stepped into the elevator that evening, she barely looked up, but as she stitched the seam of her uniform, she felt his eyes linger against all odds. He wasn't ignoring her. He was watching. Marcel, usually indifferent to small details, found himself fascinated. Her technique was flawless, her hands steady, her concentration unshaken. He had met hundreds of designers, yet here was an unknown woman perfecting a skill they often took for granted. An unexpected turn. Without hesitation, he made a decision. He wanted her talent in his world. "Where did you learn to sew like that?" His voice startled her, breaking the usual silence between the powerful and the overlooked. Pia hesitated. No billionaire had ever spoken to her like an equal. "My mother taught me," she replied simply. Glancing up at him, Marcel nodded. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, said, "I want you to work for me." Pia blinked, thinking she had misheard. Work for him? The man who owned skyscrapers, whose suits cost more than her annual rent. You won't believe this, but he didn't wait for an answer. He handed her a card and walked away, leaving her to stare at it in disbelief, left everyone speechless, especially herself. For days she debated whether to call. Something about the offer felt strange. Why would a man with access to the world's top designers need her? But the struggle to make ends meet weighed heavier than her doubts. She picked up the phone, a shocking twist. Marcel answered himself. "I was waiting for your call," he said. Her first task was simple, adjust the seams on a new suit. But as she worked, she noticed something odd. His measurements didn't quite match his frame. The fabric choices were peculiar, too soft, too forgiving. Pia had tailored enough garments to know when someone was hiding something. Cleaned wounds came to mind, the kind that needed shielding. She didn't press him for answers. Not yet. But something told her that beneath all the wealth and power, Marcel was concealing more than just a preference for fine tailoring. An unbelievable outcome was waiting to be uncovered, and she was already too deep to turn away. Marcel never meant for Pia to see, but one evening, after an exhausting fitting session, he loosened his shirt without thinking. Pia's trained eyes caught the irritated skin beneath the fabric against all odds. She didn't react with shock or disgust. Instead, she simply looked at him, waiting for an explanation. He tensed, expecting judgment. Years of hiding had taught him that no one could truly accept his imperfections. An unexpected turn. Pia didn't ask intrusive questions. She just nodded, as if silently acknowledging his struggle. You won't believe this, but for the first time, Marcel felt the weight of his secret begin to lift. "I've seen this before," Pia said softly, her voice steady. Marcel's guarded expression flickered with surprise. She told him about her mother, how she had cared for her as illness ravaged her body, a shocking twist. She knew what it meant to suffer in silence. Marcel swallowed hard. He had never expected understanding. Pia didn't pity him. She didn't offer empty reassurances. Instead, she adjusted his shirt, noting how the fabric irritated his skin. "You need breathable material," she murmured, left everyone speechless. She was focused on solutions, not his flaws. Marcel had hired her for tailoring, but she was offering something more. The next day, Pia arrived with a small jar. "Try this," she said, setting it down gently. It was a homemade balm, one her mother had used to soothe fragile skin. Cleaned wounds could heal, but scars remained. Marcel hesitated. Then, without a word, took it. The unthinkable happened. He wanted to trust her as the days passed. Pia worked with quiet determination. She adjusted his suits to accommodate his needs, never once making him feel broken, an unbelievable outcome. Marcel found himself anticipating their sessions, drawn to the ease of her presence. She saw him in ways no one else ever had, but not everyone would be so kind. The world still demanded perfection, and soon someone would enter his life who wouldn't be as accepting. A life-changing moment was coming, and this time it wouldn't be gentle. Pia didn't just tailor clothes, she understood them. She studied the way fabrics touched Marcel's skin, the way seams irritated him. Against all odds, she designed garments that didn't just fit him, but protected him. Each stitch carried intention, each fabric choice was made with care. A life-changing moment was sewn into every detail. Marcel had never trusted anyone with his appearance like this. He'd spent years dictating every element of his wardrobe, but now he let Pia take control, an unexpected turn. For the first time, he wasn't just hiding his condition, he was dressing to embrace himself. You won't believe this, but he started feeling lighter. She introduced new textures, breathable silk, soft cotton, seamless linings. You don't have to suffer to look good, she told him, adjusting the collar of his suit. A shocking twist. Marcel had never considered comfort before. Image had always been his prison. But Pia was showing him another way. At fittings, he stood in front of the mirror. Seeing himself differently, the man staring back wasn't just a billionaire maintaining an illusion. He was someone worthy of comfort, dignity, and care, left everyone speechless, especially himself. For the first time, he wasn't ashamed of his reflection. Pia noticed the change in him. He walked with less tension, his movements less guarded. He even smiled more, something she had rarely seen before. Cleaned wounds weren't just physical. Healing had begun in ways he hadn't expected, and it all started with trust. But not everyone would accept this version of him. Marcel's world was built on admiration, not authenticity. Soon, someone from his past would see these changes and their reaction would shake him. The unthinkable happened. The woman he had once idealized was about to return. Clemence had always loved his perfection, but would she love his truth? An unbelievable outcome was about to unfold, and it would test everything Marcel had learned. Clemence had always been the kind of woman Marcel thought he needed. She was poised, admired, and effortlessly stunning. When she entered a room, people noticed. Against all odds, she had once made him feel invincible. But now, standing before her again, he wasn't sure if he still felt the same. She examined him closely, her fingers grazing the fabric of his suit. "You've changed," she murmured, eyes narrowing. The softness of his clothes, the subtle shifts in his style, it didn't go unnoticed. An unexpected turn. Marcel hesitated. He had once sought her approval, but now her opinion didn't feel as important. Then it happened. Clemence noticed a faint mark at the edge of his collar, a glimpse of the truth he had hidden for so long. "What is this?" she asked, pulling back. "You won't believe this, but for the first time, he didn't scramble to cover it. He simply met her gaze, waiting. Her expression shifted. Curiosity turned to something sharper. Disgust flickered across her face before she could mask it. "Marcel," she whispered, stepping away. "How could you not tell me?" A shocking twist. She wasn't angry that he had suffered. She was angry that he wasn't perfect. The silence between them stretched. Heavier than ever before, Clemence had admired his flawless image. Not the man beneath it, left everyone speechless. Marcel felt nothing but clarity. He had spent years molding himself for her approval, and now he saw how shallow it had always been. "I can't do this," she finally said, her voice cold, no outburst, no sadness, just a quiet rejection. Marcel didn't stop her as she turned and walked away. Cleaned wounds could heal, but some scars were reminders of who was never meant to stay, and maybe that was a gift. As the door closed behind her, he let out a slow breath. The weight of years of pretending was gone. The unthinkable happened. He felt relief, not loss, and for the first time, he knew exactly where he wanted to be. Marcel sat alone. Replaying Clemence's reaction in his mind, the rejection should have devastated him, but it didn't. Instead, it felt like a door had finally closed on a life he no longer wanted. Against all odds, he wasn't grieving the loss. He was welcoming freedom. A life-changing moment had just happened, even if it wasn't the one he expected. He thought about Pia, about her quiet understanding. She had never asked him to hide, never demanded perfection. An unexpected turn. He realized that love wasn't about admiration, it was about acceptance. Clemence had loved his image, but Pia had embraced his truth. You won't believe this, but he finally understood what real connection felt like. Marcel withdrew from the world he once dominated. No more exclusive parties, no more shallow conversations. He turned his focus inward, seeking something deeper, a shocking twist. For the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of losing status, left everyone speechless. He simply disappeared from the social scene. He spent more time with Pia, watching her work, listening to her stories. She introduced him to Constance, her younger sister, a girl full of light and laughter, an unbelievable outcome. Marcel, the man who once hid behind wealth, found joy in simple moments. Cleaned wounds weren't just on his skin. They were in his heart. Pia noticed the change in him. His posture relaxed. His laugh came easier. He no longer obsessed over every detail of his appearance. The unthinkable happened. He allowed himself to be imperfect. He let Constance tease him, let Pia choose his outfits without resistance. Tears of joy almost came when he realized he was happy. But happiness wasn't the only thing growing. Marcel found himself drawn to Pia in ways beyond admiration. Her kindness, her strength, her ability to see beauty where others saw flaws. It captivated him. A life-changing moment was coming, but this time, it was one he would choose for himself. Marcel had spent his life hiding, but now he was ready to step forward. An unexpected turn awaited him, and for once he wasn't afraid of what came next. Marcel stood before Pia, his hands uncharacteristically unsteady. He had faced corporate giants, navigated ruthless negotiations, but this moment felt far more terrifying, against all odds. He wasn't offering wealth or power, just himself. He reached into his pocket, gripping a small velvet box. A life-changing moment was about to unfold. Pia looked up from her sewing, surprised to see him so tense. Marcel knelt, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring, an unexpected turn. He wasn't asking her to enter his world. He was asking to enter hers. "Pia, will you marry me?" His voice held no arrogance, only hope. "You won't believe this, but for the first time, he feared rejection." Tears welled in Pia's eyes, her breath catching in her throat. She had never imagined this, never thought a man like Marcel could love someone like her. A shocking twist. She realized she had loved him for a long time. With a trembling breath, she nodded, left everyone speechless. She whispered, "Yes." Constance let out an excited squeal, nearly knocking Pia over with a hug. "I knew it," she laughed, her joy infectious. Marcel chuckled, feeling something foreign but welcome, unfiltered happiness. An unbelievable outcome. He, a man once obsessed with image, had chosen love over illusion. Cleaned wounds no longer defined him. Love did. The wedding was nothing like the grand affairs Marcel once attended. No press, no business deals, no elite guest list. Just warmth, laughter, and the people who truly mattered. The unthinkable happened. Marcel, the billionaire who had once feared imperfection, had chosen a life built on something real. Tears of joy flowed freely as he held Pia's hands. He knew he had finally shed the illusion. He wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't trying to be someone he wasn't. A life-changing moment had come full circle. He kissed his wife, feeling lighter than ever before. An unexpected turn had rewritten his story. Marcel had once feared imperfection, but now he saw its beauty, and in that moment, he knew. This was the life he had always been searching for. Marcel's journey wasn't just about love. It was about breaking free from the expectations that controlled him. How many of us live trapped by fear, afraid to show who we really are, against all odds? He discovered that real connection isn't built on perfection, but on authenticity. Are you still chasing an image, terrified of what people might think if they saw the real you? Think about your own relationships. Do the people around you accept you for who you truly are, or only for the version you present to them? Marcel spent years seeking validation in the wrong places, only to find true acceptance where he least expected. The unthinkable happened when he let down his walls. What would happen if you did the same? Could you finally find the kind of relationships that bring real fulfillment? This lesson goes beyond romance. Whether in career, friendships, or self-worth, trying to fit into an illusion will only leave you empty. A life-changing moment comes when you stop seeking approval and start embracing yourself. But the real question is, are you ready to take that step? You won't believe this, but the happiest people aren't the ones with the most money, status, or admiration. They're the ones who have stopped running from themselves. Marcel had all the wealth in the world, but it meant nothing until he learned to accept who he truly was. What's holding you back from doing the same? Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt pressured to hide a part of yourself to fit in? What happened when you finally let go of that fear? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and if this story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story like this one. Because trust me, this is just the beginning of the conversations we need to have.